Yo, what's going on? Constellation Gaming here. Today we're going to be taking a look at a deck that I call Rackdos Removal. Now in Magic, Rackdos is a color combination of black and red, both of which tend to have the majority of the removal in the game. So I took that concept and I ran with it in today's deck that has 35 separate ways of removing cards from the board. Now, if you don't believe me, count along and comment on how many forms of removal that you see in this deck down below. Now we'll get right into it. Starting off the deck, we have 3 copies of Aster Rabbit. This is literally the best card in the entire game, so there's not much reason not to add it. The ability to search the top 3 cards of your deck and just pick the best one for the situation is always extremely strong, let alone in a deck like this that just has an abundance of removal. So Aster Rabbit is essentially always able to find a piece of removal every single time that it rips its ability. It's a really strong card all the time, but even more so in this deck. Next, you've got 1 copy of Elichick. This is kind of removal. The reason being is it's either removing a Gorgons from their back row, because Elichick is almost always an auto Gorgons for some reason, or you're searching out your Zeus and then you're utilizing Elichick as a beat stick and getting over something. But Elichick is kind of pseudo removal in the factor of getting rid of an Celestial with Zeus, or it's just getting rid of the Gorgon's Gaze that's sitting in your opponent's back row. Next, you've got 2 copies of Eddie. Eddie is extremely strong, just being able to out pretty much a majority of 5's bodies along with Aster Rabbit, plus a good chunk of 2-drops too. Plus, if you add Zeus, it can start to out stuff like Blizztrix and other cards that are extremely relevant. So Eddie is always an extremely impactful card. Have it at 2 right now in the main deck. There is 1 in the sideboard just in case we need it, but we've just got the 2 in main right now. Also serves as another removal card essentially, due to the fact that every time you play this you're going to be outing an Celestial on their board more than likely. Other than that, you might get shielded back to hand, but then you're just playing it again and they just brought your removal back to hand for a second go around. So Eddie's extremely strong and just another piece of removal that this deck has. Then we've got 2 copies of Warmite. I tell people this all the time, Warmite is the GOAT. This thing literally just comes out and takes out anything less than 7 attack all on its own. Combined with Zeus, anything less than 10 attack falls to a Warmite very easily. So this outs pretty much every single 2-drop in the entire game safely, and a majority of them safely with a Zeus. So Warmite is extremely strong, and it just counts as another piece of removal in this deck, just because it is just essentially removing any attack position Celestial that you're throwing this thing into. Then we've got 1 copy of Lavalith. Extremely strong, not much to be said about it. It's limited for a reason. You're literally just casting it out as soon as you get behind on board state, and then you're just popping a back row. So it's removal in that factor, and then also if they don't have another back row, or they don't have the ability to chain that back row to stop your Lavalith, you're also outing a guy. So it's a 2-for-1 removal spell essentially with Lavalith, following just the fact that we have an abundance of removal in this deck. Next up is 2 copies of Werepup and the 1 Lycovoid that goes along with it. Werepup is extremely strong in this deck, not only for the fact that it goes into Lycovoid and pretty much always demands an answer. We also play New Moon in here, so this gives us the ability to literally tutor out a removal spell. So not only can Werepup threaten to go out into Lycovoid and essentially be just a giant beat stick that's counter rune immune for a turn, Werepup can also threaten to have the ability for us to tutor into removal that we might need. Then we've got 2 copies of Nabi and 1 Doppelgator. Nabi is still extremely strong. A lot of people are shifting off of the solar and lunar hype train that came along with the moon rise phase. people are still utilizing the Werepup and Lycovoid as a small package, but other than that, they're not really on Lunar too much. I mean, I guess Spectaris too, but like, as a whole, they're not really on it. So Navi is actually kind of coming around to the point where it is pretty impactful due to the fact that a lot of people are playing just Fire and Earth. That's what a lot of the meta is right now, it seems like. Some people are playing Water, but it seems like a majority of it is just Fire and Earth, and then some like Tornage and stuff in there sometimes. But again, like I was saying, Navi is really strong for that matter. It's coming out, it's outing anything that you're attacking it into, and then you're getting a Doppelganger, and that has the potential to out a second Celestial or just swing for 2. So it's extremely strong. Spectaris. This is outing anything that has a need for its ability. It has the ability to just out Galaxy. I know it's not very prevalent right now, but if anybody is playing Galaxy, it has the ability to easily out that. Has the ability to out Viserys. It is just a 5 attacker on its own, so that's something to just keep in mind. Plus, just anything that utilizes its ability heavily just falls to it. So Spectaris is still a really, really good card right now. And that is it for our Celestial package. Now for the runes. To go with our Werepup, we're playing 2 copies of Lunar Phase Full Moon. And I know most people only play 1, and especially since we're only playing the 1 Lycovoid, it might seem weird to play 2 copies. But the reason being is we've also got 2 copies of New Moon in the main deck. And this will allow us to target and suppress an Celestial, and then if we need to, we can always discard a Lunar Phase from our hand and destroy it. So having 2 Lunar Phases gives us the ability to utilize Full Moon's potential to be discarded and foretell free, which actually has come up in a few games in testing to help me just thin my deck better and make the draws that I want appear. Plus also gets just removal. And then also to serve along with this Lunar Phase package, we have 1 copy of Waxing Gibbous. And the reason being is we're playing a decent amount of Lunar, so if they play a Tsunami on us or an Altar in order to change our position, this just gives us the ability to shift ourselves back to attack and then possibly get like our Navi to still go over or something of that effect. Plus also, it's just a Lunar Phase that we can utilize New Moon to pitch and discard, so that way we can destroy something. So it has multi-purpose in this deck. Then for our slot of removal cards, and why this deck is really called Rackdos Removal, we've already mentioned like pretty much how every single Celestial in this deck pretty much works as removal most of the time. You got 2 copies of, well, not 2 copies, 1 copy of Earthquake and 1 copy of Resting on Your Laurels, your 2 main removal spells that you'll be playing. Not really much to talk about there. They're limited for a reason, so everybody plays them, and they're just extremely strong in that manner. 2 copies of Zeus. This works as pseudo removal. Pretty much anything that goes down or gets down statted by Zeus is going down in an attack one way or another, unless you just don't have a Water Enchanted Celestial and they Tsunami you. But for the most part, anytime you target something with Zeus, that thing is going down, so it serves as a piece of removal for this deck. Plus, you can also utilize Zeus with our Cryoblast that we're running 2 copies of. We've only got 2 in the main board because sometimes you run against Frost decks and you don't want to have all 3. Plus, just we have the 1 in the side in case we feel as though we need more. But just having 2 tends to work pretty well, and pairing it with Zeus and its ability to subtract 3 means that Cryoblast essentially is an oddly colored Earthquake for anything that has less than 5 defense. So it's extremely strong, and like I said, sometimes you do just run into Frost decks, and this is a dead card. So running 3 of isn't really optimal, but you have the 3rd in the sideboard in case you know that you're not running into one. 2 copies of Tsunami. because it's just extremely strong. Allowing you to change everybody's position to defense is just a really good option. Only got 2 in the main deck, or I think we might only have 2 in the whole deck, just because there are some water decks running around. Plus also with a lot of the big guy decks, it doesn't really solve the problem just to turn it to defense for a turn. It just kind of puts a band-aid on it until the next turn when they just attack over you anyways. So you kind of really can't run all 3 just because of those reasons. Got 2 copies of Shield of Achilles. This was actually a 3rd PTA and 3rd Tsunami, but just big guy decks, like I said, anytime they stick one, you'll just essentially die if you don't have a way to out it. Even though we do have a lot of removal in this deck, it doesn't, like, if you can't target it or something like that, you do have a very difficult time to be able to out it. So something like Volt Tempest with a Zeus underneath of it, this would really give us a struggle. So this is here for that type of stuff. Next, we've got 2 copies of PTA. A lot of people don't play PTA. I think it's really good. Personally, I think any card that is removal is really good. So that's why this whole deck was made, pretty much, just to prove the point of removal is still really good, no matter what the meta is. So we've got the 2 copies just to ensure it. Plus, it's a really, really easy rabbit killer. As every time I see the rabbit, I kill it, especially if I'm going first. It's just an easy way to gain momentum and then just make sure that you don't get rabbit stalled, because this deck can get rabbit stalled. It's not very likely that it does, but it does have the potential to. Then we've got 3 copies of Gorgon's Gaze to shut down anything that an opposing Celestial could ever think about doing. Gorgon's Gaze is just extremely strong, literally the best counter rune in the entire game, so we're always gonna find room for 3 of them. And then to finish off the main deck, we've got 3 copies of Ambrosia. Ambrosia is really strong just because healing's always really strong. In a game where playing everything costs your life, healing your life means that you can continue to play the game, which is always going to be really strong. And that will do it for all of our main deck. Now moving on to the side deck over here. To start off, we have our final copy of New Moon. This is actually a really good card and a really underestimated card. A lot of people underestimate the first half of this card in the fact that it has the ability to suppress. So you can easily utilize this to shut off stuff like Sonic Core ability, so that way you can utilize counter runes, or you can utilize it to shut off Galaxies or Viscerus, or anything that utilizes ability and really heavily relies on it. Plus it's a double-edged sword that serves as a removal spell, and it's just really strong. So having a 3rd one in here, I believe, is just really useful and comes up a lot more frequently than you would believe, along with the 3rd copy of Cryoblast. This is in the side deck, just like I said, because sometimes you do run against Frost decks. So this pretty much goes into every single matchup that's not a Frost deck. And that's all there is to it. It's literally just there to not break out against Frost decks and against Blistrix types matchups. Then we've got our final copy of PTA here. PTA is, like I said, still really strong. If I know I'm not against big guys and I don't really have to worry too much about them just summoning a really large guy that I can't out, then I'm definitely going to be swapping out Shield, putting in PTA, and just going in a kind of almost 5 style with this deck, where you're just playing removal and just outing their guy, playing a guy, and then just rinse and repeat, rather than doing more of like a quote-unquote game plan style deck that a lot of the meta has been surrounded by recently. And then we've got our 3rd copy of Eddie here. Like I said earlier, Eddie is just really strong and essentially serves as a removal spell in itself. And then if they want to shield it back to hand, you just easily get to utilize its effect again, and it might even be in a more impactful manner. So Eddie is just a really strong card that should not be slept on. Then now we're done finishing out the 1-ofs to finish out the main deck. Then we've got our 1 copy of Boombat that is just here for stuff like Blitztrix and big guy matchups that I stated we do have some trouble with. So Boombat can very easily just be slotted in and just be a literal kill spell, and that's all it is. Oops, hit the mic there. Then we've got 1 copy of a very interesting card, and a card that's actually been seeing a little bit of play recently, but I'm going to try it out this weekend, and that is Pandora's Box. Pandora's Box, I think, is really strong right now. I haven't really done too much experimenting with it, but in theory, it is really solid. Has the ability to shut down all Argo play, plus all stuff that searches out stadiums like Rummikul, Joltin, Elechik effect, anything like that Gorgon's Gaze would shut down, Pandora's Box can shut down. Plus it also has that bonus ability of shutting down Argo effects and other search type effects like that. Then we've got 2 copies of Hurricane. This is because Argo is really popular, and Argo decks like to set a lot of stuff. If you're playing against an Argo deck, more than likely they're setting 2, maybe 3 cards, and it's really strong, just to have a bunch of different types of counter runes for them. So having the Hurricane just to blow out their entire back row, since a lot of people aren't showing respect for it, is really good. But it's still a sideboard card due to the fact that there might just be people who still are in the habit of just setting 1, and having Hurricane doesn't really feel that great against those people. Got 1 Lycris also to go along with the fact that you're playing Hurricane, just because we don't have it in the main deck at all. Then we've got 2 copies of Rockin' a Hard Place. I really like this card because it serves as removal for both Elestrals and also back row, depending on which one they pick and which one they value more. And since we do have a lot of Elestral removal, if they do happen to pick the back row, we can very easily just out the Elestral more than likely. And having the Rockin' a Hard Place in the side deck along with the Hurricane gives you the ability to find out your opponent's playstyle and side in which one of these are going to be more effective against your opponent, rather than just throwing one in the main deck and hoping that it works out. I tend to just throw both in the side deck, see their playstyle, and then side accordingly, and that tends to work out better than throwing either one of these into the main deck. Then for the Blizz matchup, 2 copies of Divine Blessing. This is mainly just here to stop Rise. Also, this stops stuff like Ambro and stuff like that. Eruption, it'll stop if you're playing against a burn deck. So there are other matchups that it can come into, but it's honestly mainly just here for Blitztrix and Rise. And I'm always going to keep in the Divine Blessing for that. Technically, it can stop Laurels and Earthquake and stuff like that if you're really feeling that, like, in this deck where they have a lot of removal, maybe you need something to stop that removal for just a second. This can be an option, but like I stated before, this is mainly just a Blitztrix matchup thing. And then the final card in the side deck is 2 copies of Spoiled Brute. I hate Heal Stall. That's it. Talk over about this card. I hate Heal Stall. This card is the best we've got against it. Doesn't really do much against it. It kind of just stops the bleeding, to be honest. Can't really side 3 in because we just need the slots for other things. But we were able to fit 2 in, so we're going to fit 2 in because I hate Heal Stall. To round out the deck, we've got our Spirit deck with 2 copies of Flurmine. We've got 2 copies here because we're running the 3 Cryoblast. Plus also this gives us the ability to easily just Frost Enchant if we don't want to worry about them Cryoblasting us. Most of the time in game 1, since we only have the 2, we're only realistically going to need 1 Flurmine more than likely to cast our Cryoblast, so that other Flurmine is free for that misenchant more than often. Got 2 copies of Terratlas here for the Earthquake. That's all it's there for. Then we've got 3 copies of Vipyro. This is here to ensure that you can cast your Lavalith and get off 1 cast of Warmite. I don't like running the 2 Vipyro with the Warmites and the Lavalith because I always want to guarantee that I have the ability to cast out both without shutting off the other. If I have to, I can always ascend a Warmite into a Lavalith. However, just having the ability to easily play both and not have to worry about it is all very valuable. Got 3 copies of Leviathan here. This is here for the eddies and the tsunamis. Plus, if you're not really utilizing either too much, you can always utilize it for a misenchant to play around tsunami. This is very comfortable. I don't really feel like I'm ever wanting for more Leviathan. Even though it seems like it might be a little lackluster for it, it's actually the perfect amount. Got 4 copies of Zaptor here. This is for the Zeus, Elechic, and Rabbit. More than likely, you're gonna go 1 Rabbit, 1 Elechic, 2 on Zeus, or 2 on Rabbit and then 2 on Zeus or something like that. So this actually works out pretty well. And then if you do have a few in the grave and you need them, you can always Ambrosia. But more than likely, you're gonna work out fine with the 4 Zaptor that you have here. And then since we are a majority of a lunar deck, we've got 6 copies of Owloon to finish off the main deck here. So that is Rackdos Removal. What do you guys think about it? Is this a deck that you want to run, or is this something that you absolutely dread the concept of? Let me know down in the comments below, and let me know something that you might want to see me build. I know I've been a little lackluster on the video posting lately, but I will try to be a little better at that. I'm just very busy at the moment. But I hope you all have a good day, and peace.